All right, I'm showing 5:30.
We are live.
Okay. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the meeting will be held via Zoom video conference for participants. Viewers will be able to watch the meeting live on YouTube. The YouTube channel is North Little Rock School District Board Meetings. At this time, it's public comments, but I'm told that no one called in for public comments. Is that correct? We have no public comments tonight?
I believe that is correct. Just want to double check with Ms. Colquitt to confirm.
Okay.
Yes, sir, that is correct.
All right, in that case, I'll call the meeting to order. Let's do our vision and mission statements. Ms. Williams, will you read vision and mission statements?
The North Little Rock School District vision statement is world-class schools for world-class students. The mission, the North Little Rock School District and the community will provide for achievement, accountability, acceptance, and necessary assets in the pursuit of each student's educational success.
Thank you. Rhonda, can we have the roll call, please?
Mrs. Temple,
Here.
Dr. Reddas,
Here.
Mrs. Wacom,
Here.
Mr. Zakreski.
Here.
Ms. Person West, Mrs. Williams,
Here.
Mr. Steele.
Okay, thank you. All right. Dr. Plisky, we will.
Thank you, Madam President and members of our Board of Education. During this evening of a historic snowstorm here in North Little Rock region, our first item, which is going to be item number 4, which is our recognitions. The first item, which is 4.1, which is the Superintendent's Honor Roll. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mr. Dustin Barnes, with much recognized recognition for some of our employees.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, board members and Dr. Paluski. The first recognition will be recognizing our nursing staff. They were nominated by Leanne Alexander, who is the Executive Director of Special Services for the district. She writes the following. I want to highlight our nursing supervisor, Nurse Mandy Stuckey, for her leadership in providing leadership and guidance during the COVID-19 pandemic. She was instrumental in getting our procedures in place to reopen schools this fall and became our district point of contact for COVID-19. Nurse Stuckey had to go on medical leave in December and is still out. In her absence, two nurses have stepped up to become our district point of contact and second district point of contact. They are Tanya Nurse Green and Nurse Alisa Williams. In the words of Dr. Paluski, it is the sign of a great leader when a program can run seamlessly in the absence of its leader. Nurse Green and Nurse Williams have stepped up and have continued Nurse Stuckey's vision and hard work. These ladies in our are the liaisons with the Department of Health and do daily reports for the agency. They take calls from staff, students, and parents that have tested positive for COVID-19 and calm their fears and give medical advice. They do contact tracing, which can take hours of investigation and phone calls for each positive case. It is a thankless, tireless job, and they are true heroes. In addition to the building nurses have worked diligently in their buildings to help with the COVID-19 cases. Many of them have come to the annex to help with the district point of contacts, which they finish in their buildings. I cannot express the amount of teamwork and cooperation this group has, and that is largely due to the leadership of Nurse Mandy Stuckey, Nurse Tanya Green, and Nurse Alisa Williams. The COVID-19 hotline has to be answered every day, including during the winter break. So that no one nurse had the total responsibility, our school nurses volunteered and divided the phone up over the break. This included Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day. In addition, the COVID-19 testing site that is set up and running by Natural State Laboratories at Park Hill Baptist Church was started because of our nurses. Mandy Stuckey and Tanya Green. They contacted Natural State Laboratories to see if they would be willing to do a site in North Little Rock, and then contacted Park Hill Baptist Church to get permission to use their parking lot. The North Little Rock site is open from 3:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and is primarily manned by our school nurses. This is a great service to our community. She goes on to say that it's a privilege to nominate these school nurses for the superintendent's honor roll, and I'm going to say their names. Mandy Stuckey, Tanya Green, Elisa Williams, Brooke Buckley, Amanda Fairchild, Jennifer Hughes, Kim Johnston, Dana Marshall, Melissa Montgomery, Marla Morrissey, Sonia Nelson, Kayla Rogers, Jenny O'Bannon, Leanne Rhodes, Sarah Rogers, Matthew Trice, Laura Beth Wortman, and Joanne Worthen. Let's give a round of applause to these nurses. Some of these nurses are on here, and I'm going to turn it over to Miss Leanne Alexander so she can share some more words about them.
Good evening, board, and I am just so thrilled to be able to nominate these nurses. Largely due to them, our schools have been able to stay open. Their hard work, I just can't express to you. I supervise the nursing department, and a lot of people don't know that. So I have been so lucky and so fortunate to have such a great team. And so I'm thankful that you're honoring them tonight. And I don't know if Nurse Stuckey is on here or Nurse Green. If one of them wants to say a few words, I'd love for y'all to just say something to the board.
I'm on here, Lan. I want to thank you very much. All the nurses have worked very, very hard this year. It's definitely a new one for all of us. And I'm very thankful for everybody's leadership. We couldn't do this without the help of everybody. So thank you. And I love each and every one of the nurses. We have got a fabulous group that works very hard and works well together.
Thank you. Thank you all for what you do. And we'll have something for the nursing staff when we get back. Of course, we've been out, so I have not been able to prepare your token of recognition, but when we get back, I'll be sure to get that to you. Our next recognition will be Mr. Gerald Watson. He was nominated by Ms. Kim Martin, who is over the custodial services department here at the North Little Rock School District. She writes the following: Gerald Watson Jr. began working as summer help in the custodial department in 2014. He has worked his way from summer help to substitute custodian to custodial warehouseman. As he works in the custodial warehouse, delivering supplies and needed PPE to each location, he also fills in for the morning and night shift when custodians call in. Requests from principals and secretaries have been made for him to substitute at their location because they like his helpfulness and work ethic. Gerald is a huge asset to the custodial department. He doesn't complain or question when a task is given to him. Anyone that knows me has heard me refer to Gerald as my wingman. My hope for Gerald is that he will move up to the supervisory position in the future. He's a team player that is always willing and available to help the school district custodial department strive and thrive. And Ms. Martin is on here. Ms. Martin, would you like to add some more commendations or some more praise for Mr. Watson?
Sure, he wasn't able to make the connection, but I just want to let you know Gerald is one of the quiet, behind the scenes kind of guys. He's essential to the custodial department, and the school district is very lucky to have him on their team. And I know he appreciates this. He texted me and told me I shocked him, so he's excited, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's give him a round of applause in his absence, and we'll get that to him as well.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes, and thank you for all of our recipients, all of our nurses, as well as Mr. Watson. I think that's just a testament to the great employees that we have. So kudos to all of you for being recognized this evening. Madam President, our next item, which is 4.02, which is our Parent North Star Supporting Teachers Achieving Results Award, and I'm going to turn that over to my colleague, Ms. Barker.
Thank you, Dr. Paluski. President Temple, board members, Dr. Paluski, Dr. McGee, North Little Rock School District staff, parents, students, and North Little Rock community. It gives me great honor and pleasure to read tonight our parent North Star. This submission was made by my colleague, Kathy Hale, who is our student information specialist, cycle coordinator, and counselor supervisor for the North Little Rock School District. And she writes, the opening of the 2020-21 school year brought many challenges for a large number of our students choosing to attend school virtually. Not only was this shift difficult for school administrators and teachers, but many new stresses were also placed on our families and students. The opening of the North Little Rock Virtual Academy saw many families scrambling to prepare devices to be used by their students for online schooling. Among those families in North Little Rock are grandparents raising grandchildren and attempting to help them be successful and navigate the digital world. I met one such grandparent in a chance meeting over the phone in August of 2020. Miss Patricia Adams was transferred to me from the switchboard to see if I could assist her. Before she got to me, she had attempted several other numbers that were busy or on which she had to leave a message and wait for a callback. Ms. Adams explained that she was a grandparent of an incoming freshman at Northern Rock High School who would be a virtual student. She did not know how to access her Home Access Center account in order to retrieve her grandson Jamel's schedule for the school year. Without the schedule, she would not know his Google Classroom code to use to obtain and access Jamel's online studies. Ms. Adams told me the importance of getting Jamel off to a good start in high school and how she did not intend to let him sit around and play video games all day. Together, we were able to get Jamel's schedule, and after several phone calls that first day, getting the correct Google Classroom code for each new class period throughout the day, Jamel was able to attend his first full day of virtual classes. Ms. Adams deserves the North Star Parent Award for her dedication and perseverance during an unprecedented and difficult shift in student learning due to the pandemic. I have had the pleasure of speaking with Ms. Adams a few more times throughout this year as she has checked on Jamel's progress. Ms. Rubble and I have put her in touch with teachers via email as we needed to speak with them. We've spoken with her about grades at interim and even about GPA and how it is calculated. I listened to her congratulate Jamel for his excellent grades and celebrate his accomplishment with him including his 3.375 GPA for his first semester of high school. I applaud Ms. Adams for supporting teachers and achieving results. Dr. Paluski, Dr. McGee, North Little Rock staff, parents, students, and North Little Rock community. Help me congratulate our February 2021 Parent North Star, who is a grandmother, and she is a classmate of mine, Northeast class of 1987. She did not know why she was on tonight. She thought she was on to share with you the power and importance of grandparents. Let's congratulate Ms. Adams. She's there right there if you want to share. And you will get this beautiful acrylic star. I will get it to you via mail or however we have to do it. But we wanted to congratulate you. Is there anything you would like to say, Ms. Adams?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to thank everyone that's here tonight. Thank you for working with me and working with Jamel and making sure he gets where he needs to be. Since he in the 9th grade, he started his credits, and it's very important for graduation. So I thank everybody from the school, from Ms. York, you, Crystal, everybody's here tonight, Mr. McGee, Ms. Williams, everybody here tonight, Mr. Pulaski, everybody here tonight. I just want to thank you for nominating me, and I will help any other mother, grandmother that need any direction about their child, want to see them successful. I will help them if they need it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. You can be dismissed. Thank you for helping me with grandparents.
All right, you tricked me, girl. Thank y'all. Bye-bye. Okay.
I think it's just another great example of what's great about the North Little Rock School District community. That is such a great example. Madam President, 4.3 is our Arkansas School Board Association School Board Member Awards. We have 2 distinguished awards that we're going to give out tonight. The first is the Pinnacle Award. This is given to a school board member that has achieved at least 200 hours of continuing education, professional development, and serving as a leader to their local Board of Education. It is with my great honor to bestow that to our former board member who needs really no introduction, Miss Campbell, and just want to congratulate her for her leadership, her service, and all those hours of professional development. I'm not sure if she is on here, but if she is, I would love for her to say a few words, Miss Campbell. If we could all give Miss Campbell a round of applause. And the second distinguished award that we're going to receive, that's going to be received tonight, is our Master Board Member Award. And that is for earning at least 50 hours of professional development and training as a school board member. And ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to our Vice President, Dr. Rochelle Redis, for achieving that Master Award. Dr. Redis, would you like to say any words?
Oh, thank you. I'm actually trying to catch up with Natalie because she has more credits than I do, but I'm gonna catch her this year.
Oh, come on, sister, let's go. I got you.
But no, thank you. Professional development. I just got my doctorate in 2020, so obviously education means a lot to me.
Outstanding. Thank you again, Dr. Redis. Congratulations. In 4.4, item 4.4, we want to, is our Black History. Remember that February is Black History Month. And we do have a very special guest that's going to join us today to help us all reflect and remember the importance of Black History Month. And I'm going to turn that over to my colleague, Mr. Dustin Barnes.
Dr. Paluski and board, again, we're glad to have one of our students to provide Black History Reflections for us. This is Deborah Adams. Deborah is a student, a junior at North Little Rock High School. Her parents are Edith and Joseph Adams. She's been in the district since she started school. She started at 7th Street Elementary, then went to the middle school. And again, now she's a junior at North Little Rock High School. She is a very active student. She's a part of the band, and she's also a part of the dance troupe. She will be reciting a poem by Maya Angelou. We know Maya Angelou is spent her formative years here in Arkansas. So we're gonna make it local for us. So Deborah, it's your time now, and we want to thank you again for graciously accepting this role tonight.
The Human Family by Maya Angelou. I note the obvious differences in the human family. Some of us are serious, some thrive on comedy. Some declare their lives are lived as true profundity, and others claim they really live the real reality. The variety of our skin tones can confuse, bemuse delight, brown and pink and beige and purple, tan and blue and white. I've sailed upon the 7 seas and stopped in every land. I've seen the wonders of the world, not yet one common man. I know 10,000 women called Jane and Mary Jane, but I've not seen any 2 who really were the same. Mirror twins are different, although their features jibe, and lovers think quite different thoughts while lying side by side. We love and lose in China, we weep on England's moors, and laugh and moan in Guinea, and thrive on Spanish shores. We seek success in Finland, are born and die in Maine. In minor ways we differ, in major we're the same. I note the obvious differences between each sort and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. We are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. The end.
Thank you, Deborah. very talented individual. She also taps. She does tap. She taps as well. So she does she's very talented. So thank you, Deborah, again for agreeing to participate on our board meeting tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
Well, there was so much there. We appreciate everyone so much. This just such positive. We're happy to see it, happy to support each other. This is wonderful. Let's keep moving forward. On to the board member and superintendent involvement.
Yes, Madam President, 5.1 will be board member involvement. So just the opportunity for any board member, if they would like to share any of their involvement within the community or at large.
Oh, I'll go first. My involvement with the community with the North Rock Education Foundation, with the president, Dr. Angela Zakweski, and with the representative from the board, your representative, Dr. Paluski, Ms. Barker. And we attended several schools to give out grants that were surprises to teachers. And it was a very awesome day. It was raining, but instead of all of that, it was a great day because we made the teachers happy and it was a surprise. And so with that was my part of getting in the community with these schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, before it snowed, I had the opportunity to tag along. Thank you, Dr. Paluski, for letting me tag along with you to visit some schools. Of course, you know, I know Dot says, you know, which she's correct. All of the schools are ours, but I'm sorry, Boone Park has a soft spot to my heart. So it was special to me to be able to go visit Boone Park so that they can see how much I appreciated the gift that they had got for me. I got a chance to go to visit COE. I love COE. North Rock Middle School, Principal Kane was wonderful. He took me on a tour of some things that will come up eventually that we probably, you know, need to look at fixing. So I was glad to be able to see that. Then I wasn't expecting to, but I was able to participate in the I Like Me books with the mayor when he was reading. That was fun. That was exciting at 7th Street. So I got to do that. And lastly, thank you to Miss Carla Rogers Jones. She's the counselor at 7th Street. She asked me, which I was nervous, to be a part of their Black History video. The children were wonderful. I was nervous. So with their support and all that, we made it through the video. So it's supposed to be shown to the parents, she said, I think the end of February as part of their Black History program. So I tried to get out there before it snowed.
Good job. Anybody else?
Well, I haven't made my visit yet because we had to reschedule due to the weather. However, I have, you know, been on standby if I have been needed to help with any type of tutoring or anything like that as it relates to helping students with virtual homework, since parents are now working from home also. So like I said before, I have nieces and nephews in the district, so I am available to help them. And then I have a couple of kids from church that I help also during the day, sometimes when they're having issues.
I will chime in briefly. I was able to help arrange, the North Lark High School PTA fed the teachers the first night of their teacher conferences before the weather hit. So we were happy to be able to do that. And as part of the Wildcat Foundation, we're planning our golf tournament that'll be coming up in a couple of months. We're going to be renaming it, and that information will be coming out soon, but be looking out for that.
Thank you. right, well, let's hear superintendent involvement.
Thank you, Madam President. I appreciate that. So 5.2, the item of superintendent involvement. I'll go very quickly. To date, I've actually had 10 teacher focus groups. I did one last night for 2 hours with Indian Hills. I could not be more proud. There were almost 20 teachers that wanted to talk to me, part of that teacher focus group. So I've only got a few more left. So I was very proud of that. I echo Dr. Retta's comment. We had a great visit over to Boone Park and 7th Street. Dr. McGee also joined us for that, for the read-in with the mayor, but that was a great opportunity. And Dr. Rettis and I also did a quick two-step to the high school that day, and that was great to be a part of that. On February 6th, we had our first board retreat. I thought that went really well. We had a full day, and that was exciting, and that can be found on our website. Also on February 9th, I attended, I believe with some other board members, specifically I remember Ms. Williams and I, because we were in the superintendent's office, we attended the virtual Arkansas School Board Law Seminar all day, so that was a good refresher. Also on February the 12th, I had a great opportunity to meet with our local leaders. I met with Representative Wing, Senator English, Representative Scott, Mayor Hartwick, and also Ms. Gosser, Mr. Gosser, and Mr. Owens from the North Little Rock Chamber. So it was a great kind of opportunity to meet and greet with local leaders. That was a great luncheon. On February 13th, so last Saturday, I had the opportunity to attend the girls North Little Rock High School basketball game at the arena. I also had the opportunity, I stayed there to watch the boys both beat Mount St. Mary's. And I had a great opportunity. I spent the second half of the boys game watching the game with Mr. Steele, who was there to watch his son play. So we had a great dialogue, and I appreciate his time last Saturday. Obviously, we've been in the middle of a historic snowstorm. I just want to recognize Mayor Hartwick. I have been on the phone with Mayor Hartwick every day throughout this storm. I want to recognize him for his leadership and just our information sharing back and forth. You know, as a city leader, he has access to more information. So that has been helpful for me to give that information to our team as we're sharing and collaborating information during a historic time. Today was the first day of the National Superintendents Association virtual conference. So I did spend my day, most of it on virtual sessions. So Madam President, that is my monthly report for superintendent's involvement.
Yes, I'm very busy.
Yes, ma'am.
I know we added the CPPC and the LPPC to our agendas. Are they visiting us tonight? Do they have a report for us?
Yes, ma'am. This was a request by our board members, which I think is a great idea to have our CPPC and LPPC monthly report. There is nothing to report this evening. Mr. Smith, who is our liaison, I believe will be meeting with them on Monday. So I believe at our next regular monthly at the end of March will be their first report. And I believe, Mr. Smith, that they're also going to be posting their minutes to our website and then be summarizing those minutes during our monthly reports at the end of the month. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir. LPPC is up as far as the past meetings that the minutes have been approved, and I am working with the CPPC to get those minutes up in that appropriate spot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That'll conclude that item, Madam President. Yes. Shall we move on to our information items?
Yes, sir.
So our information items, which is section 7. So 7.1 is our federal and categorical funding presentation. This is going to be done by Ms. Christy Ratliff, who's our Executive Director of Federal Programs and Professional Development. So Dr. McGee and I wanted her to kind of give a high-level overview of our federal and state funding categories, and then do that to communicate with you and the board. So I'm going to turn it over to our colleague, Ms. Ratliff.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ploski, Madam President, members of the board. I'm going to share my screen with you. All right. So here we go. And you stop me anytime for any questions. So the purpose of this is I wanted to share with you all the areas of federal programs and the federal allocations that we receive, also the state categorical allocations. So in the federal allocations, the first one is Title I. And of course, Title I supports the academic achievement of students. I let you see right there the amount budgeted for schools, and they're based on rank order of free and reduced, and then the amount budgeted at the district level. Those at central office, that's the salary and benefits for those working in the program. Under the homeless, there's $90,000 there. I do want to say inside that homeless, we have a lot that's a set aside that we put in there for Title I. That portion of that is Miss Riggins and her assistant, Miss Easter's salary. It also supports our foster students in the district, along with items for school. We also are using that for food now. We were using McKinney-Vento for food, but we no longer can buy food under the McKinney-Vento grant. And right now we're looking to reapply for McKinney-Vento grant, which is additional funds, but it's not guaranteed at this time. We also use these funds for cap and gowns, for ROTC, for senior breakfast, anything these students need. Right now, we have identified 741 students in our district. This actually helps. Another thing that the homeless also does is the farm. No, I'm not sure if you're aware, but at the farm, all the items that it produces, it goes back to the community and the homeless community. Miss Riggins works very closely with KJ Kite up there. And so KJ works through the summer. So these funds also help support her for working off her contract and all the materials that she needs also there at the farm. Then you see district level parent engagement activities that Miss Crystal Barker uses that when she's putting on our district activities around. For parents, indirect cost is there, and then equitable services for private schools. Anyone have a question about Title I? All right, I'll keep going. Here's the ranking of the buildings for Title I. They are ranked by poverty level. So you can see those at the top, and they are funded based on their poverty level. So those are the allocations that go out to the schools. I will say that if we have a student that is identified at one of our private schools that we service, then we have to take the funds from that school to give to that private school. So let's say a student lives in Indian Hills and they're attending IC. The amount that was supposed to go to Indian Hills would go to IC because that student resides in the Indian Hills zone. So that's why it's so important. And I try to stress to our principals that if we have students attending our private schools, we really want them to come back because that's going to give more funding back to your school. Title I 1003 grant. This is a school improvement grant. These 3 schools were identified based on their level of school improvement. And so they get these funds. In the past, they were supposed to use them for professional development to build the capacity in their buildings. But this year, they also let us use it for science of reading. So curriculum, supplemental materials, other items like that they've purchased, and also to support their opportunity culture that's going on in those schools. Title II, these are funds for recruitment, retention. I work with Jacob Smith's office, and then for high quality educators, recruitment activities that go on around the state. He has funding for that. We had a contract with Leadership Academy this past year to have performance coaches, also to have school teams to attend their leadership professional development. We work with Public Impact that helps us with opportunity culture. We pay for AIMS professional development for our pre-AP and AP teachers to attend. Also, if we have curriculum trainings or curriculum needs that's going on during the school year, we use funds to help support that. Tuition reimbursement for those who are working in levels and they don't have the certification. And then, of course, we have to set aside equitable services also for private schools for their professional development. And then we also take indirect cost. Title III. This is our support for our English language learners. So we have to, by the State Department regulations, we have to set aside the funding for curriculum materials, for professional development, and parent engagement activities. Along with that is equitable services for private schools. We are paying right now for a tutor. There is a high number of ELL students in the North Little Rock Catholic Academy that's located over there by Boone Park. So we are funding them a tutor to help in their program. That's how they wanted to utilize their Title III set-aside funds for their building. And then indirect cost. This year we were able to write for a Title IV federal grant, and this helps to support students, support academic enrichment. Title I helps with our school improvement, but it makes us focus on our literacy and our math. With Title IV, this is helping us support some areas that are outside of the core areas. So it can be support for PE, it can be support for some art areas. We are using it to support, we have 2 health positions who are working in the district with these funds, and also activities and PD and materials and supplies for these individuals who are working with the schools. We have some money set aside for technology, and then some support for our STEM courses. And we have STEM in the elementary schools. We have a STEM person that the students rotate through, and that's also, STEM would also be the East in our middle and high schools that these funds could take care of and help. And then there's indirect cost again. That was all federal. Now we move into state categorical allocations. Inside state categorical, the biggest one is ESA, and it was formerly the NSLA, National School Lunch Act, but now it's called ESA. So we get this lump sum of money, $6.3 million, and I listed for you what it pays for. There's salary and benefits of all the positions that it's paying for here in our district. And then I have listed the educational curriculum. These are the online platforms that students are using, whether they're in school or using by virtual. And then we have to transfer funds over to ELL and ALE for the overages that they have. So here on this page, I have it broken down for you in ESA, the salary and benefits and the cost for each one of them. So that has them listed, how much each one of them will cost this year. Then when we move on to ESA, besides salary and benefits, we are transferring $2.3 million either to ELL or ALE for the overages and salary and benefits. And then there's the amount we are using for the curriculum and online platforms. So in ELL, we only received $200,100 in ELL funds. And so we use that, all those funds have to be used for our salary and benefits for our ELL teachers. And I broke down for you how many teachers we have and where they are located. So as you can see, our allocation is one amount, but then our salary and benefits are coming in at a larger amount. So I have to transfer the additional fees from ESA into ELL to cover the salary and benefits of the teachers. And then with ALE, these are all the positions that the ALE funds are supporting. We receive allocation, and then the salary and benefits actually come in at 2.6. So I have to transfer 1.5 from ESA funds into ALE to cover the salary and benefits for this program.
Ms. Ratliff, you just want to explain that again, why we're over our budget in those allocated categories?
Sure. So it goes to this side. So let me get to this side.
Just so folks understand that we're not currently from within those budgets.
Right, and that's what this slide shows. It shows that after we pay for everything out of ESA, right now it shows that by the end of the year it would be in the negative. So what has happened was last year the salary schedules, we had different salary schedules that happened. So people landed now differently in salary schedules as we moved forward. Along with that, we hired some additional positions this past summer. So with both of those things that went into play, it pretty much, it leveled us out, plus the additional positions took us over. So that's where we are. The plan right now is anyone that resigns, leaves our district, and they're paid in these positions, we are absorbing that to offset this funding right here, and that way to help it. And as we are planning for next year, we have to take this into account, because every year people go up in salaries on the salary schedule unless they are topped out. So we are making plans right now to figure out how we're going to do this and make sure we stay in budget now that we have the new salary schedules in order, and then make sure, that's why we have position control that Dr. Paluski has put in place also, that we make sure before we are hiring new positions that we can financially afford it. Dr. Paluski, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, and I think that's where I expressed some concerns, to the board in the beginning, and this will be in my transition report, is number one, trying to get a handle on all of our human capital and human resources so that we know, these funding sources, how much people, as you can see in a lot of these, where most of the salary is going is in people. So it's salaries and benefits. So what we want to do is make sure that we're using those people and those human resources effectively. And so somewhat what you can start to see is some misalignment between the data and performance and allocation of resources. So our next phase, matter of fact, in the next 2 weeks, we'll be doing our first school principal budget meetings, in which they're going to have to go through each and justify each of these allocations, look at their enrollment. As we start to look at all of the different resources that are hitting each school, as you can see, schools have multiple pots in which we're channeling resources into those schools. So we just want to start to look at that as a better picture so that we're not over our budgets or our allocations for these funding sources.
Yes, sir. And then the last of the categorical funding is professional development. And these are the funds. This is not what's been spent, just like some of the other slides that I had. This is what's been budgeted for this school year. This is also an area we did not get to travel. We didn't even get to go here in state to a lot of professional development sessions. So the funds that are left here, this is another saving area. Any funds that are left here in PD, we can transfer back into ESA to help offset that cost also. So we will be doing that with these funds that are left over in this category. And then one last thing I wanted to show you. Oops, let me go back. Hold on. Let me go back. I wanted to show you was this. These are the professional development initiatives that we've had this school year. Of course, we're continuing with RISE. We are finishing up the RISE, which is the reading initiative for teachers. We're going to finish that up this summer. There's Haggerty, which is a phonemic awareness that is going on. We've had training in that this year. Our Wilson and Wit and Wisdom curriculum. We've also been having some training on social emotional learning. And then, of course, with technology, with going virtual this school year due to the COVID pandemic, we've had lots of technology training, and also training on the platforms that we're using. Waterford, Apex, Edgenuity shows you all the platforms, and then professional education that's going on among teachers and administrators with their professional learning communities, the Leadership Academy, Opportunity Culture, Title IX, and then NWEA on their data reports that's going on. So we have a lot of PD initiatives that are going on across the district. And then I'm here for any questions you guys might have.
And thank you, Ms. Rabbit. I just want to jump in before the board members do, and that's kind of to help folks make the connection back to the work that Mr. Brown is doing at our next budget meeting. Eventually, when we get there, you'll be able to see in the public our 5-year trends, budget to actuals for these federal and state categories as well. So what Mr. Brown is working on that through those workshops is operational. So eventually we'll get to looking at all of this budget to actuals over the last 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be happy to take any questions.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Ms. Ratliff. Would
Yes,
you
ma'am.
explain? I couldn't hear I don't have the clarity on the indirect cost Would you explain it to me again?
Mr. Brown's actually on here with me to help explain that because that's the financial area I allocate the funds for, and then he takes it and utilizes it. So,
Okay, that's what I need to hear because I saw it on several of your,
yes, we can take indirect cost on all our federal funds. And so Mr. Brown has me set aside funds for that. Mr. Brown, are you on here? There he is.
Yes, he is.
Yes, I am. Thank you. I can answer the indirect costs. Indirect cost is built in for ADE, allows school districts to take what they call indirect costs. They establish a percent of your allocation, and ours is approximately 5%, 5.5%, I believe, for this year that we're allowed to take. And what that does is that allows the district to recoup cost for administering that grant. When we pay people that are paid out of those funds, or we process purchase orders for those funds, we process accounts payable for those funds. We also provide, the lights and the electricity for the buildings for those programs. So this is a way that ADE allows school districts to charge the grant for those administrative costs that pay for the programs themselves. So, my department handles payroll, we handle accounts payable, we handle the purchase orders, we pay the electric bills, all the utilities, and those things, the programs are it does take administrative, it does take those activities to administer the grant and keep up with the bookkeeping part of that. So what that does is that allows us to charge that grant and put those funds in the operational fund. So it's just a way to reimburse the district for having to do all of those activities.
Hey, Ms. Radcliffe, I enjoyed your presentation. Now, Mr. Brown, when you're doing this budget for us, with these we haven't gotten to the next budget section, but I think that when you had those indirect costs, like what she had on hers, that if they could be explained to us in every area, that to me would be a tremendous advantage. And thank you, though, for that explanation. But I'm more visual than I am auditory.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So
I appreciated that.
Each fund, yes, ma'am. So each fund allows that allows indirect costs. We'll have those. And when we talk about that in budget, I'll make sure that we itemize those out for you, because we can take indirect costs in each of those program areas. So in Title I, in Title II, whatever fund that we're talking about, it allows for that administrative cost reimbursement to the district. So we'll itemize those out. There's actually an indirect cost line that we'll discuss in our budget meetings.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions? Brian, I have a quick question. I saw you just muted. When I think I know what the indirect costs are. When you take those, I know Ms. Williams was saying she'd like to see them in a line item, but I'm not sure you put them down to like this much of it was for insurance and this much was for lights and this much was for the bookkeeper. You don't do it that way, do you? So, okay.
No, ma'am. No, I can give you, we can give you a total that's budgeted for the indirect costs, and we can break that down by fund. But what we do, we pay for the, we pay for all of the incidentals for those programs out of operating that are not paid out of the grant. So we just reimburse operating for that. So 100% of what we take in indirect costs just comes back to what I call Fund 2001. That's where all the indirect costs, and that's our operational fund. So the operation benefits from that indirect cost line.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
When you said that we had 741 homeless students.
Yes, ma'am.
in my mind, when I'm hearing homeless students, I'm thinking of kids that don't have a roof over their head, but I heard you say that foster kids are in that number. How many of the 741 are foster kids?
I don't know exactly, Miss Temple, but I can get you that breakdown. I'm working right now with Miss Riggins. Right before this board meeting, we are putting together a chart so that you see how many are located at each building. But along with foster students, there's also students that are doubled up. They may be living with other family members. They are also included in this. And one thing that Ms. Riggins did want me to mention is that there are no shelters here in North Little Rock. I didn't know if you were aware of that. So we have to provide transportation from the shelters in Little Rock for our students that still want to come back to our district.
Okay. Thank you.
I would just suggest there, Madam President, Ms. Ratliff and Ms. Riggins are going to put a little data table in next week's weekly board report, but we're going to come back and do a full presentation on our homeless program. How many students, where's that, the allocation, understanding McKinney-Vento. You know, it's just not that, you know, you could be living with another family and be considered homeless. So I think it would be a good idea just for the public to understand, you know, how students are actually, you know, classified as homeless. I think that would be very beneficial, not only to our board, but to our community. And we'll be happy to do that.
Okay.
Ms. Ratliff, one other question. Those families that are living in hotels, how does our district have to pay for their board, or how do they survive like that?
Well, I can't tell you exactly how, because Ms. Riggins is such the expert at that, and I work with her, but she communicates with the people there in the hotels, and works whatever we can afford and can do for them, we do. I do also know we had 3 house fires this past week. I didn't know if you knew that were here in our district. And so Ms. Riggins is always on the phone taking care. We use these funds for that also. But I can find out for you, Ms. Williams, exactly how we do work with those families in the hotel and get back to you. I'll be more than happy to do that.
You're on mute.
Maybe you all need to be asking us as a board. I was just concerned about their boarding. You know, I know Ms. Riggins feed them very well and take care of their clothing and all of that. But that was just a question in my mind. I don't know if they're on the street or do we actually put them in hotels or what, because they are our students, you know. And you did say we don't have a shelter in North Rock, and I understand that, but I do know some homeless parents are living in the hotels down by the library.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. As when she finds out that there's someone out there, she contacts them. She has lots of community resources to make sure they're taken care of. I know she's working long hours into the night sometimes to get everyone taken care of in a safe place.
Okay, I was just wondering something that we may need to do as a board to look at it. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Ratliff. Very good presentation.
Anytime.
And maybe before we leave this section, Mr. Brown, just a note, I think it'd be a good idea to explain indirect costs in the next weekly board report as a follow-up to this board meeting. I think that will be helpful for the board members. And again, as we'll tackle that in our next budget workshop.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Madam President, would you like to move on to 7.2?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Information item 7.2 is our community reading campaign. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues, Mrs. Barker and Ms. Barker and Mrs. Smith to give a high-level overview of our community reading campaign.
Good evening, Madam President and Dr. Paluski and board members. And I appreciate Ms. Barker being on here with me because we surely couldn't get this program underway without her help. So I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. All right. So as we start here, just a little bit of background about where this came from. This is actually part of a grant that I wrote for from the State Department of Education. And the grant was encompassed reading support, the RISE initiative that the state is doing. And one of the components of the RISE initiative is that districts have been challenged and charged to get as much community involvement as possible. So one of the components of the grant that I wrote for had to have some type of program or activity that would get the community involved. So I kind of started thinking back to when I was growing up, and I remember the campaign called Got Milk. And I would see it on billboards and in magazines, and I would see famous people with the milk mustache. And the whole goal of that, you know, was to try to get students and people and children to drink milk. So I thought, well, you know, that might be a great idea for the concept about books. So I came up with Got Books, and then Reading is Cool, and Ms. Barker helped with that. And that COOL acronym stands for Creates and Opens Opportunities to Learn. So basically the whole premise of this campaign is to get the community involved and get the not only the parents, but also our stakeholders. So again, the big push here is to try to get the community and parents and stakeholders involved in the very, very important job of getting students to read and teaching students to read. So the initiative also is to educate parents and stakeholders about the reading initiative for student excellence, which is the RISE program from the state. And then we also, I felt like we needed to communicate with our parents at the elementary level about the Wilson Reading Program, because this was adopted last year and we started the program. And I just got to thinking, you know, it's kind of a different way to teach reading. So I thought we needed to get out there and have some opportunities for parents and stakeholders to understand how reading is taught. We also, one of the goals is to increase parental involvement with reading at home. We all have seen the research. We know how important it is for students, even our tiniest little scholars, to hear reading and vocabulary and to be talked to. So we wanted to, with this program, try to increase that reading at home. And then, of course, the ultimate goal would be to increase reading scores among all subgroups in the district. So the grant that I wrote for was a SOAR grant, and it stood for Successful Outcomes for Arkansas Readers. And again, it came through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And as I mentioned, the second goal of this reading initiative is to create community collaboration. So the SOAR grant, the funding, we received about $41,000 divided up among the 9 schools, and it was based on their student population. So it varied a little bit. Our smaller schools obviously received a little bit smaller amount of money. Our larger schools received a little bit more. But within that, we were able to, I wrote in the grant for some reading instructional resources that obviously supported the RISE initiative and the science of reading. Funding in there for community outreach, and then also education around the importance of reading with our community. This is a little bit of a timeline that we got going. And again, Ms. Barker helped me with the Parent and Family University we had on January 12th. We had over 143 parents and staff members attend that night for our reading session, and that went really, really well. We had 4 teachers that came on and kind of explained and even demonstrated how they teach reading to kindergarten through 5th grade students using the Wilson Reading Program. Then on February 2nd, Crystal was very instrumental in getting a flyer out to community partners. I sent it to school principals. They sent it to all kinds of stakeholders, those from churches to businesses to just anybody. We wanted anybody and everybody to come to that Parent and Family University. And that one was specifically for stakeholders to let them know what they could do to get involved in this program and how important it is that we all support reading in our North Little Rock community. So February 8th to March 5th, that's actually the campaign kickoff at each elementary building. And we're calling it Got Books. And they have done some amazing things. They put things up outside their buildings. With the grant, they received some money. So they're getting some bookmarks and pencils, and they're doing some special activities every week to really, really encourage that. Then the week of March 8th, or 8th through the 12th, that will be the culminating week for the program. And then during that week at each school, there will be a virtual family night that will involve activities for parents. Hopefully some of the stakeholders will, join that night as well. But it's just a time to celebrate reading and get folks involved in the program. So one of the things too, we kind of had to measure, we had to think of a way that we could collect some data on both parent and community input. So I did distribute a reading survey. It was emailed to parents through their school. And also we emailed it to community stakeholders during the month of November. We had 506 parents and 61 community stakeholders respond. And this was just some of the highlights from the survey. 42% of the parents indicated that they spend 5 to 15 minutes a day reading with their children. 81% of parents indicated that they were only somewhat familiar with the reading program that was used in their child's school. 97% of parents indicated that reading was very important, and 88.7% of parents indicated that they had a variety of books available for their students at home. So we looked at this data, and that's again how we decided for the content for the Parent and Family University. We knew that if 81% of these folks that responded really didn't know how their children were being taught to read, that was definitely an area that we could provide some information around. So this was the community survey feedback data. Again, same questions pretty much. 85% of our stakeholders indicated that they are only somewhat familiar about the reading program used in our schools. 88% of stakeholders indicated that they felt only somewhat engaged in the reading program at their school. I was trying to gauge the community and partners in schools, how involved were they, especially around the idea of reading. 98% of the stakeholders indicated that they would be willing to learn more about the reading program, and 98% of the stakeholders indicated that their company might be willing to support a reading program at their school. So that then kind of was the jumping off point for our parent and family stakeholder university that night to get that information out to them. So next steps and a timeline, we're going to continue to engage parents with information, instructional tools, and ways that they can support reading growth and achievement at home. We know that's key. We can't do this alone, so we need parents and we need the community. We asked them to post survey to parents and community leaders and stakeholders. So that's what they did in April, or the post survey, I'm sorry, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna follow up again in April, send these surveys back out and see how our numbers compare to before we did the campaign. Then I will reflect with administrators at the end of this year so that we can begin planning our reading campaign for next year. This is, I don't think I mentioned, this is a 2-year grant. So we are definitely going to hopefully come back bigger and better next year with this idea. And then of course, ultimately, we're going to continue to monitor that NWA data to track reading progress toward their goals. So I think overall, it's been very successful. One of the things that we asked communities to do, community partners, were to take pictures of their employees reading whether it be a technical manual or something that's required for their work, and post those on their Facebook pages, their social media pages, and just get the word out that North Little Rock is doing a reading campaign, and we want everybody involved. So we started right at home with our 2 leaders, and we caught them reading. And so we have posted that on our Facebook page as well. So I am just having so much fun. Crystal, I don't know if you wanted to add anything there to what we did. I would love for you to add any of your information.
Just add, you spoke, indirectly to what we've done, but again, we're trying to continue the campaign. So we are asking what I call North Little Rock School District and North Little Rock City local celebrities to share your pictures with us reading, because along with the reading at home, the teachers will be sharing these photos with the students during reading time. And what I shared with Ms. Smith was, we want our students to be able to connect with people that they see every day and see, hey, she's reading, he's reading. Some of the areas that I've reached out to, you will be in the near future seeing reading from our athletic students. I'm reaching out to our band, our choir, drama, anyone that will share a picture that we can get a photo that our teachers in our elementary level will be able to use and say, wow, look, Dr. Paluski and Dr. McGee, they read. So we're trying to push that excitement. And on the parent and family level, our prayer is that our district creates a culture of family reading. And we really think, I know Ms. Smith stated that the campaign ends in April. However, one thing I did share, the reading campaign will never end. That particular grant will, but we'll continue the efforts that we use to ensure that our parents as well as our students are reading. And some of the sessions under Parent and Family University, I will be holding sessions because parents have reference. They would like some more sessions around helping them read better. So I think it'll be a win-win when we look at this information on our post surveys and future areas around Got Books reading campaign. Thank you, Ms. Smith. That's all I have as it relates to, you've covered it all as it relates to the grant.
Thank you. That was very informative. I'm wondering, is there any way to tie this in with our library bus for the summer? The Reading is Cool campaign?
I'm in conversation with Lehman Library, the reading instructor there. We are communicating around this because she did hear about it through our community outreach and is more than happy to become a part and join us on, expanding this throughout, as you say, the summer and far beyond.
Do we still have our library bus?
Yes.
We do.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, ladies.
And I just want to add to that, Ms. Barker and Ms. Smith. Thank you. You've done a great job. Obviously, the big takeaway here is we've got a lot of parents that don't know, they want to learn more about our reading program. They're willing to, they just don't know a lot about it. So we've asked to kind of tap these 2 ladies and Ms. Barker specifically. We want to make sure we have a parent coordinator that is at each school. So how are they helping to get that word out, to get training to those parents? But I think it's much bigger than this. I think we really got to be doing more curricular nights with parents, like about the math program, our middle school math program, our high school, our junior ROTC. I think there's lots of opportunity to promote our curricular programs, but use that as a platform to not only train, but also to recruit, and retain those students within. So I thank them, but we've got more work to do in this area. Okay, Madam President, you ready to go on to the next?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so item 7, information item 7.3, special education data update. I'm going to turn it over to our colleagues, Dr. McGee and Ms. Alexander, to share some high-level special education data as a follow-up to our NWA data that we gave last month. Dr. McGee, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Superintendent Paluski, Madam President, members of the board, and then to all of our colleagues. Thank you. Yes, we're going to come tonight. Ms. Alexander is going to share her screen and pull up this presentation. I'm just going to kind of give a brief overview. As Dr. Paluski indicated, the both elementary and secondary directors have already presented their NWA data. We have a lot of work to do, so we want to look at where our kids are so that we begin to create a roadmap to success to move and progress in and move forward in terms of educating our children. So therefore, I wanted the directors to go ahead and make sure, that they go ahead and do a presentation that will show us where we currently are in terms of the data, in terms of our student performance.
Dr. McGee.
Yes, ma'am.
My computer messing up because you're not coming in clear.
It might be mine, Mr. Dr. Madam President. I had some computer issues earlier, so mic check. Can I get a check?
It's similar to where it was the other day in our meeting, Dr. McGee, where it was a little bit.
Yeah, so it could be mine. So let me just get on my phone.
Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes, Ms. Alexander.
Okay, I'm going to wait for Dr. McGee to get back on because he's doing the first part of this.
All right, he's been admitted, so he'll be joining us now.
Mic check. Okay, mic check.
We can hear you, sir.
Is that better? Good, thank you. So we wanted to come tonight to give the board and our community a very important group that will help us improve and move our district academically, and that is the special education. So the data source that we're going to look at will be the NWA map data from the fall and the winter. And let me indicate that NWA does not have it where we can pull this data by subgroups. So I asked Ms. Alexander to go and get her team to hand pick and pull all of our students in this subgroup and to compare this data to give us a snapshot where we are. I want to say this to our public as well as to our board. I've been updating the board and our faculty and our staff about House Bill 1151, which will suspend the public rating. And the reason why I'm mentioning this, we have a great opportunity here to make a huge gains in our academic improvement without receiving a public rating. And I think it's very vital that we understand to take advantage of this opportunity. As you can recall, we had a school that actually moved in this subgroup. Boone Park was several years ago was an F school. One of the major reasons why I grew to a letter grade was because of this subgroup increase. So as we begin to prepare for the learning loss, we want to come for our purpose is just simply tonight to analyze the fall and the winter NWA data among the special education, but also to create a plan that will allow us to continue to increase the growth among the students in this subpopulation. And then we also want to continue to prepare our students in this subgroup for the statewide district assessment, which is the ACT Aspire. So I'm going to stop here. Ms. Alexander is going to come and she's going to take over here and continue on with our data presentation. Ms. Alexander.
Okay, hang on. Okay, good evening, President Temple, members of the board, Dr. Paluski, and my fellow executive team members. First, I want to thank Dr. McGee, who came over to my office and kind of helped me spruce up this presentation. I wanted to start with this quote, and it's, "If a child can't learn the way we teach, maybe we should teach the way they learn." That kind of signifies special ed to me. We have such a great group of teachers, and the data I'm going to present to you tonight makes me very excited. As Dr. McGee said, it's not easy to just pull data for special ed. So every teacher, every special education teacher in the district had to hand pull each student on their caseload for both fall and winter NWEA, one student at a time. And they put it on a big spreadsheet for me, and then my leadership team helped me to desegregate the data so that I could bring it to you tonight. But the really important thing I want you to know is before I asked them to pull this data, teachers were emailing me so excited about their growth of their students. And I knew that I was going to have a good presentation for you tonight. When teachers are giving you data before you ask for it, you know it's going to be a good outcome. So with that, I'm going to move into the data, but I want you to know that every student on in this data represents one of the 13 disability categories that is identified by the Individuals with Disabilities Act. So these are all students with disabilities. And while they may not be performing at the norm, I think you're going to see that we have some really good and exciting news to present to you guys tonight. So I'm going to start with elementary. All the special education students in elementary K through 5 showed growth in all subject areas from fall to winter. And I want that to sink in for a minute, because in my time, my 20 plus years here in North Little Rock School District, we haven't seen all grade levels in special education have growth for a long, long time. I want you to notice when I present this data that science is not tested for grades K2. So you're not going to see a science band for those grades. Okay, so I'm going to move on. This is our first slide, and this is kindergarten. The blue represents reading over here, and the red represents math. These tall bars are the norm scores for the fall and for the winter. But what I want you to notice is that the special ed students in the fall scored 122, and in the winter, 129. That exhibits growth. That is how you move subpopulations with growth. If you look at the math, 124 to 134, that's a 10-point gain, which is great strides. I'm so proud. Let's move on to first grade. Again, I'm not going to look at those norm scores as much as I'm going to look at the growth. They went from in the fall 136 to the winter to 145. That's a 9-point gain in reading. In math, they went from 137 to 148. That's an 11-point gain in math. That's really exciting news. In second grade, if you'll look in reading, they went from 149 in the fall to 157 in the winter. And in math, from 157 to 161, all exhibiting growth. Moving on to third grade, you'll notice that I've got a third column. That's going to be where science is starting to be tested. If you'll notice for the fall, 155, they went to 164. That's amazing, 9-point gain. In math, 162 to 170, an 8-point gain. From 170 to 178, another 8-point gain in science. Moving on to fourth grade, if you'll look at reading in the fall, they scored a 170. In the winter, they moved up to 174. In math, they had a fall 175, and in the winter window, 180. They grew 5 points there. And for science, 180 to 186. Just really good news to me. Look at fifth grade. In reading, we have 175 in the fall. They grew to 181. In math, 180 in the fall to 186 in the winter. And in science, 185 to 190. So that sums up the elementary. Our elementary special ed students are all showing growth. This is how we move letter grades. And if this subpopulation keeps moving and does this well on the ACT Aspire, I think we're going to see some great progress in our elementary buildings. Next, I'm going to move on to middle school. Just some generalities. Special ed students showed growth in all subject areas for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Again, that's something we need to be celebrating. Reading is still a lower area scoring, but students are still showing growth, so that's amazing. And then at the bottom, I just put that all of our secondary schools are implementing the inclusion model of instruction with co-teaching along with resource, just so you knew that we're implementing both of those programs. So I'm going to move on to the data for middle school. We're going to look at 6th grade first. I'm just going to look at those special ed scores. So in the fall, they were reading at 185. In the winter, 189. That's for reading. In math, 189 to 191. In science, 192 to 193. Still showing growth. Now in 6th grade, our growth is not as big as in elementary. And I don't know if it's the transition to middle school, but we're still showing growth, and that is progress. I want you to look at 7th grade, because 7th grade, we had some really great gains. And these were where my emails were coming from a lot of my 7th and 8th grade special education teachers. If you'll look, we had 183 to 190, that's 7-point gain in reading. In math, 185 to 194, a 9-point gain in math. And in science, 184 to 194, that's a 10-point gain in science. That's just amazing. In 8th grade, we had in reading 190 to 196, a 6-point gain. In math, 191 to 199, an 8-point gain. And in science, 196 to 198, which is a 2-point gain. And so that's middle school. That showed gains in every subject area. So I'm going to move on to high school. And my first statement, another thing to celebrate, special education students showed growth in all subject areas. We only test 9th and 10th graders in high school because 11th and 12th are taking the ACT. But I'm going to show you the data for those. Reading is still our lowest scoring area, but we are still showing growth. And that's what I want to emphasize here tonight. Again, I put all of our secondary schools implement the inclusion model of instruction, which is co-teaching, which is a regular education teacher and a special education teacher. And we also operate with the inclusion. So I'm going to move on to this data. In 9th grade in reading, we had a 197 in the fall, 199 in the winter. In math, 203 to 207, but I want you to pay particular attention to our science here. The norm in science was 202, and our special education students scored at a 200. They were 2 points below the norm, which is pretty amazing. You don't see that very often. Again, same for the winter window. They scored a 208 when the norm was 213. So I'm really proud of those teachers teaching science in the 9th grade, special education. That's amazing. 10th grade, here are our scores. If you'll look at reading, we had a 193 in the fall, 194 in the winter. Math, 204 in the fall, 205 in the winter. And science, 196 in the fall, 197 in the winter. Where we still showed small gains, that is still growth. So I'm happy with that. So I want to talk about next steps, but before I do, I want to say the real champions in this data. I get to be the one that presents it to you, but the two true champions here are our special education teachers, our special education paraprofessionals, our regular education teachers who are working with special education students, and our support staff, our speech therapists, our occupational and physical therapists who are providing those supports so our students have access to the regular curriculum. So I want to say that because I'm just the lucky one that gets to show you the data. They've put in the real work. I cannot speak enough about our dream team. That's what I call our special services team. And I'm so proud of them and so proud to be able to present this data. So our next steps, we're going to implement inclusion K through 12. We have some really great examples of inclusion going on. That's when teachers co-teach. At the elementary level, we're just not doing it district-wide. At Glenview, we've got a phenomenal 5th grade ELL, special ed, and regular ed teacher working, and we're seeing some great growth there. We're doing some things at Boone Park and Ridge Road, but we would like to implement that throughout the district. It's working really well at secondary, and we want to continue to do that at the elementary level. We're going to use this NWA data to write new goals for their IEP plans. The data drills down to specific skills where students need help, and we can write those directly into IEP plans and really drill down to those skills we need to work on to see further growth. I'm expecting great things for ACT Aspire. And then lastly, we're going to use this NWEA data to determine the need of students that have lost learning and students that might need to attend our summer school program that we're going to be offering this summer. So lastly, I have a big thank you, and this is for you, board. I want to say thank you to you because you guys, when I came to you last year and asked to spend quite a great deal of money to buy the Wilson Reading System, which is the Tier 3 reading intervention for special education students, and you allowed me to do that. You also approved for me to send our special education teachers to the Wilson Practicum, which was a grueling, strenuous process, but these teachers were very well trained. And also you allowed us to implement Eureka Math. And I think that we are starting to see the fruits of some of those things that you allowed me to purchase. I think we are going to see great things. I only continue to hope to see great growth. And so I just wanted to say thank you to you guys because you allowed me to purchase the things necessary so that special education for the first time had the same curriculum as regular ed. And I think it is greatly improving our scores. So with that, that's all I have tonight. If you guys have any questions or concerns that you want to ask me, please feel free.
Let me say something before you come with questions, Dr. Paluski. I want board members to know that growth is a part of ESSA, and that's how we get points and we move our school district. On the elementary level. Growth is half of the ESSA score. On the secondary level, it is a third of that score. So the growth is going to be a real big key to moving and improving our subgroup now and our student achievement within our district. So I just wanted to point that out before you guys address any questions. So thank you so much, board members.
I have a few questions if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Wonderful presentation. Thank you for that. That's awesome. So did I hear correctly that we're using the Wilson program even for our secondary education? Is that who or what program we are using for our middle school and high school children?
Yes, ma'am. We are using the Wilson Reading System, which is a Tier 3 intervention. So we have specific reading teachers in special ed at both the high school and middle school that are using Wilson Reading System for our students that are scoring in that low 15% in reading.
Okay. And then can you qualify or explain to me and others? So when I hear special ed, Leanne, who's in that group? Explain that to me.
So special ed can be a lot of different students. This group that we're talking about today is not our lowest cognitively delayed students. Those students are in self-contained and CBI, and they take an alternative assessment. So these are our students that they're not quite up to being, they have a disability. So they might have a specific learning disability. They may have mild autism. So they're in either a resource setting or they're in an inclusion setting. So they may be in a regular class with an inclusion teacher. So these students are higher level functioning. They all have an IQ of above 55 because that 55 IQ cutoff is where we define cognitively delayed. So all of these students are functioning below an average IQ, but they are still functioning in the regular curriculum. Did that help, Natalie?
Yes. Thank you, honey. Yes. Yes. And then follow up to that is, okay, so what about my kids that are ADHD or ADD? Are they included in that as well?
Yes, ma'am. Those students usually qualify under other health impaired. They have to have a medical diagnosis and meet the criteria. But yes, a lot of those students fall in that criteria. That is a disability category.
Okay. And then what about my kids that are dyslexic? How are we finding our babies that need that special attention, and how are we putting them against the testing data? Does that make sense?
So many of our students that qualify as dyslexia is not one of the 13 disability categories in special education. So a lot of our students that are being served under dyslexia have a 504 plan, and they are being served by a dyslexia interventionist in the building. However, we do have students that have a specific learning disability that also have dyslexia. So there are some students that have dyslexia that are represented in these test scores, but they usually have other disabilities going along with that. The students that are just truly dyslexic, they are being served by our dyslexia interventionist in the building, and their test scores won't be included in this test scores. However, they are using the Wilson Reading program with those students. It's just not a special education teacher delivering that service, if that makes sense.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that we were clarifying, so to say, what subgroup is in this. Also, okay, so I'm going to ask a mean question. Here's my mean question. You ready? Okay. Do we have data from last year that we can compare to this year? I mean, I saw your fall and your winter, don't get me wrong, and that was awesome. But again, last year was, COVID began last year. So do we have data to go back further than just fall, I guess is more or less my main question for it.
So we have data. It is not great data because of COVID, and NWA wasn't given when we went out in the spring, and we have some fall data from last year, but not good data. I don't think it's as clean as our data this year. I do want to say that our students, we didn't pull out virtual from the students that I showed you because 90% of our special ed students have come back face to face. We've just learned that it just doesn't work well for our students. So that's why I say our data last year's not great because we were virtual for so long. So we do have some data. I don't know that it would be a great comparison, but I would be happy to pull that, and I could provide that for you in our weekly, in my weekly board report if you would like.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Again, I'm a data girl. I like the numbers. So show me the facts, show me those figures.
Sure.
So I appreciate you, and wonderful presentation. And thank you so much, Leanne. Thank you. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Leanne, I wanted to say, I want to echo Natalie's sentiments. Excellent presentation, and excellent presentations by everyone tonight. I haven't said that to everybody, but everybody's been great. But specifically, I want to say thank you to you, the teachers, everyone you listed, and to the students and their parents and everyone that's part of this, making this whole thing happen. Thank you to everybody. Like you said, you get to present bring us the good news, but there's a lot of people doing work, and I wanted to send my thanks to everyone.
Question. Oh, Miss Alexander.
Yes, ma'am.
That was a marvelous report.
Thank you.
Never seen it before. Okay. And impressive. Now, the only thing that I saw was a little shortage there were the 10th graders. Just 1 point, and everybody else is doing so well. So I guess that's going to have to be your focus point. I know at that age, I had a son in 10th grade one time, and I know what their minds are, all 10th graders, you know what I'm saying. But it was very good. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And there's nothing else for me to say on that. Keep up the good work, good sister.
Thank you, Miss Williams.
Keep it up. I mean, impressive.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I just want to jump in there, Madam President, and just echo that as well, and just kind of a couple knots here. And I'm proud of Miss Alexander, all of our teachers. But what she's doing is now shining a light on a specific student group, and that's exactly what we need to be doing as a school district, is looking at all of our student groups and see, just like she modeled for us, are they making progress? And so this is a great model, I think, of of other data that we want to share with you by student group. And to Ms. Woncom's point, and she brings up a really good point too, where we'll go in the future when we have a strategic plan will be that we're able to look at the trend over the last 5 years through just what Ms. Alexander did, so we can see how we're trending towards our targets, and then really start to analyze this notion of the learning gap, where kids would traditionally be in our district to where they are, and then what we're going to do to move forward. So I think this is a really good model of more data to come that will shine a light on some of our most inequitable groups.
Wonderful, thank you. Love that good news. If there's no more questions, I guess we're ready to look at the audit report.
Yes, ma'am. Information item 7.4 is our FY20 audit report. I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Brown, and we have a special guest with us, which is Mr. Mark Glover, who's the CPA in his office and his firm that has done that. So, Mr. Brown, I'm going to turn it over to you and our guest, Mr. Glover.
Thank you, Dr. Paluski. I'd like to introduce Mark Glover. He's the principal auditor in charge of our account from Hudson, Sisney, and Jones Company, CPAs and advisors. As you all know, in November, the auditors started review of fiscal year 20 items, and Mark is here to present that information and report to the board. So I'll turn it over to Mark at this time.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Dr. Paluski. Thank you, board, for having me tonight. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, I'm sharing the screen, and you should see my see the audit report. I will say, kind of a forewarning, that sometimes my computer gets gremlins also, like Mr. McGee. So if all of a sudden I get the Darth Vader voice and the mumble jumble, just time out, let me know, and I'll log off and I'll log back on.
Mr. Glover, before you get started, would it be possible just to maybe increase or zoom that in to make it a little bit larger? Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Is that better? Okay. Like I said, I want to thank you guys for having me. We started the audit in November. As with COVID, just like with the audit, everything has to be adjusted. So we did a combination of in-person testing and also remote testing from our office, trying to stay, safe from a social distance standpoint. We worked directly with Brian and his staff. They were great. They answered all of our questions. They tracked down anything that we needed. They spent extra time uploading documents to our share file portal since we did a lot of it remote. So overall, I want to say thank you to those guys for helping us get the audit finished, completed, and to be here tonight to present to you guys. With that said, the audit report, if the board remembers back all the way to 2018, we had what we called a material weakness within the single audit report. The material weakness was on the ABC grant. So due to that material weakness, North Little Rock School District was classified as a high-risk auditee. So when you're a high-risk auditee, the next 2 years, so we're talking about 2019 and 2020, we had to increase our testing on the district to verify that there were no more issues with internal controls on federal programs. What you'll see here shortly is we're not going to present a finding on our testing of internal controls of federal programs. So that's great news. So going forward, starting with your 2021 audit, you'll lose that high risk monitor, and now you'll be considered a low risk auditee. So that is great news, great work with Brian, his staff in the accounting department, all the federal program directors, maintaining documentation, following the guidance, the compliance requirements within each fund that we've been testing. And I just wanted to share that good news to the board before we really jumped into the report. All right. So with that said, we will flip to pages 1 through 3, and the draft that you guys have in your board report doesn't have the auditor's opinion in it, which I'm showing right now. This report is just to let the board know that we are issuing a clean, unmodified opinion. So therefore, obviously, that's good news. We're sharing with you guys that all the numbers are materially correct, that are presented in the financial statements and in our audit report. If you flip to page 4, and this is the balance sheet, and basically it's a scorecard of kind of where the district is at 6/30/2020. I'll start with each column going from left to right. The first column is the general fund. And this is kind of your catch-all, unencumbrance, unrestricted funds that the district can use through its various expenditures throughout the year. The general fund was sitting at a real healthy position at 6/30/2020. It had $11.8 million in cash. And as you'll see, as you scroll down to the bottom, it had a total of $12.7 million of unassigned fund balance. So therefore, that fund balance and those resources can be used at the district's discretion. The next column is the special revenue fund. And this column makes up of 2 funds. We're talking about the federal awards and also the food service fund. And you'll see that at year end, it had cash and cash equivalents of $2.2 million. It had a $1 million due from other governments. And as you're aware, the federal programs are mostly on a reimbursement basis. So therefore, these funds, these expenses were spent before year end, and you're just waiting to get reimbursed from the federal government. And that's what that $1 million receivable balance stands for. The next column is the other governmental funds. This is made up of your capital projects fund and also your debt service fund. It had $17.8 million in cash and cash equivalents for the year. And all this cash is designated for future or assigned for future capital projects. If you flip to the next page, this is your statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balance. That's another term for calling it the income statement or the P&L, profit and loss statement. We'll start with revenues. And if you summed up the total general fund and special revenue fund of 87 million and 13 million, that would give you a total revenue of $100.9 million for the year. If you compare that to 2019, the district had $102.4 million in total revenue, which is roughly a 1.5% decrease compared to 2019. If you look at the individual line items, property tax, state revenues are really consistent with 2019. However, your federal awards of $12.9 million, that's compared to $14 million of federal awards in 2019. So that's roughly a 8.2% decrease compared to 2019, and accounts for the majority of the overall decrease in total revenues. As you remember, 2020, March 2020, that's when the district shut down from an in-person standpoint. So therefore, March, April, and May, you didn't have in-person learning. So therefore, the federal funds, the federal dollars weren't spent. And how these reimbursement programs work, you got to spend the money in order to receive reimbursement and receive money. So that's why you had a decrease of 12.9 from the 14 million in the previous year. If you look at total expenditures, if you summed up the three columns that we have, total expenditures for 2020 was 104.4 million versus 109 million in the previous year. That is roughly a 4.2% decrease compared to 2019. If you look at it, instructional support was consistent with last year. However, if you look at the capital outlay, the total capital outlay in 2020 was 2.3 million versus 7.3 million in the prior year. So that's roughly a $5 million decrease in capital outlay compared to last year. It makes up for the total roughly 5 million total expenditure decrease. And once again, 2020, there weren't as many capital projects, construction projects going on compared to 2019. And that's why we had such a material decrease in total expenditures and capital outlay. So now I'm going to flip over to the footnotes, which start on page 7. If you look at the bottom of page 7 and into page 8 is the measurement focus and basis of accounting. So that basically that's the basis that these financial statements are put together. It's put together on the regulatory basis of accounting, or the RBA. The RBA is mandatory from the state legislator. It is slightly different than GAAP, or general accepted accounting principles, in which we've outlined in this paragraph what those differences are. If you flip to page 11, look at note 2. Note 2 is your cash deposits with financial institution footnote. And what this disclosure shows is the total cash in both carrying value on your books and at the bank. And the state legislator requires the district to have collateral on any cash balances that are above and beyond FDIC footnote or FDIC insurance limits. At 6/30/2020, in the bank, the district had $35.8 million in excess of the FDIC insurance. However, you guys are in accordance with state legislators, state laws, and this is all collateralized at the bank. So therefore, heaven forbid if the bank went under, the district's funds and its money, it's collateralized and you're taken care of. So now let's flip to page 12. We're going to look at note 4, the commitments footnote. And this footnote is a summary of all the outstanding bonds that the district has at year end. And you'll see in the middle of the page that during the year, the district retired $5.2 million in outstanding bonds during the year, which is excellent. So therefore, your overall bond obligation, it was $196 million at 6/30/2020. Something that's ongoing that you guys are aware of, you're in the process of refinancing 3 of the 4 bonds. Obviously, if you guys can get better interest rates, that will help your debt service payment and help the district make true cash savings. So obviously that's good news. We typically disclose subsequent event information like that. However, since you guys are still going through the process and that hasn't gone to market yet, it didn't quite qualify for subsequent event information. But obviously, keep up the good work on that. Let's flip to page 15. And we do have one item that qualified for a subsequent event. And in January 2021, the district purchased 3 school buses, totaling roughly $291,000. So that information is disclosed within the footnotes. Okay, now we're going to flip to page 17 and 18. And This report is what we call the Yellow Book report, and it's a report that we're required to issue on governmental entities like the school district. It's in accordance with government auditing standards, and we're testing internal control and compliance over financial reporting. And I'd like to let the board know that we didn't have any findings, any issues that we had to issue within this report. So we, once again, issued a clean, unmodified opinion in this report. If you flip to page 19 and 20, this is what we call our single audit report. When I began the presentation, I mentioned that the good news of we don't have any findings, any issues in our federal awards testing this year. So you'll see here shortly, we had a significant deficiency last year, which we retested. However, we don't have any findings this year. So once again, that's great news, and keep up the good work. Page 21 is your schedule of expenditures of federal awards, or commonly known as your CFA. And this is just a summary of all the federal awards during the year. If you flip to page 24, this is a summary of the schedule of findings and question costs related to those federal awards and our testing. As you see, we've reported no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses during the year. The two programs that we tested was Title I and also the ESSER funds, the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. So we did our typical testing, our sample-based testing, and based on that, we didn't have any findings or any issues. Continue to the next page, you'll see current year findings, none noted. Prior year, we had a finding that we considered a significant deficiency, is with regards to a Title I director approving her own time certification. We talked to Brian about how we could change that and improve that process. He implemented a new system, a new process last year based on this finding. We came back out this year. We retested Title I. We retested time certs. And as you see, the current status, the recommendation was adopted by the district, and we had no similar findings during our 2020 audit. All right, the last report is our auditor's report on Arkansas state requirements. Once again, we have a list of requirements and state regulations that we have to test to make sure the district is in compliance with. The list of these regs and statutes are on page 27, and we go through each statute and we test it. And once again, I like to let the board know that we're issuing a clean, unmodified opinion. We didn't have any findings with regards to the state statutes, state requirements. And once again, that's another excellent opinion and report. So that's a summary of our audit report for the year ending June 30, 2020. It's good news, better news than what we've had the past several years. Going back to 2018, we had a material weakness. 2019, significant deficiency. And this year, it appears that we've got everything cleaned up. And that's what our message is today. Obviously, this is always an ongoing process. We'll continue to test the controls and the systems around federal awards and also the financial statements. But this year, we're issuing a clean, unmodified opinion.
Mr. Glover.
Yes, ma'am.
On the bottom last page there, in reading our draft, you had indicated that there was an issue with Title I. You said some findings would the legislators call us in on that? I know you said the board voted to correct it, but what we said, you know, I read here what a district, we adopted it, but on our draft that you had sent us, see, you mentioned the Title I grant for local educational agencies and school improvement grants. Now, significant deficiencies. So you went back to 19, then you said to 01. Now, would you explain that again, please, sir?
Sure. So one of our requirements is if we have a finding in the previous year, and so we had a finding in the report ending 6/30/2019. So during our 2020 audit, it's required that we have to go back and retest it to verify that you did adopt the measures and recommendations that we had, whether or not the finding was corrected and cleared. And as I said, for 2020, we have no findings, no issues. And then we have to list the 2019 finding, but you'll see on the very last, the current status in which we say the recommendation was adopted and we have no similar findings in 2020. So that should clear any questions that the state might have on that.
So the legislatures, when we won't get a letter this year about anything, that's what you're telling us, is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. I was just clarifying it because the draft, there was the clarity to that, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Glover, I do have a quick question. So that 19th finding is still part of the report. Are we still subject to the extra vetting as a result of that, or is that sort of over at this point? You'll just do your normal process of auditing?
That's over at this point.
Okay.
And the extra.
Okay, I was just making sure.
Correct. The extra vetting happened really because of the material weakness in 2018, in which we have to do 2 more years of extra vetting. So your 2019, 2020 audits, as long as we don't have any material weaknesses in those 2 years, then we drop back down to what we call a low risk auditee.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, so that was due to the 2018 finding. Okay, thank you. I was just clarifying that. Thanks.
Sure.
Any other questions? I have a quick question. This is just back on page 11. There's 2 statements. One was stabilization arrangements and the other was minimum fund balance policies. And you said we didn't have a policy on those. Is that something you would recommend? I thought we had the minimum when we transferred a certain amount that had to be, I can't remember how much it is. Brian knows, but we transfer at the end of the year to maintain that minimum amount. And I thought that was a minimum fund balance policy, but.
Yeah, I think you're correct, but I think what it's saying, do you have like a written formal policy? There's probably an informal policy, but we haven't seen something that's been written in minutes or a resolution and signed off as a formal policy.
Okay, are you recommending that?
Yes, I think that would be a good idea. It's something that I will say most districts do not have a formal policy. So it's something that we have to disclose whether you do or not. But so it's not uncommon to not have a formal policy.
Okay, and what about the stabilization arrangements? Do most districts have something that they set aside for emergencies, or is that?
No, most districts don't. They don't have a formal policy on stabilization arrangements.
Okay, all right, thank you. Anybody else? Okay,
So
well,
Ms. Temple,
yes.
Ms. Temple, if I may, on the minimum fund balance policy, the district does not have a written policy. I think it goes back to 2011 when Denise Drennan was hired as CFO and the district was in fiscal distress at that time. They had fiscal distress had recommended ending balance for the district of $12.8 million. At that time, that's when that $12.8 million was established as the district's baseline for our net legal balance. And that's funds 1, 2, and 4. So what we've done is maintained that $12.8 million legal ending balance that ADE had recommended for us. That's not memorialized in a policy, and it's not required by ADE to be memorialized in a policy, but that's where the $12.8 million came from, and that's how we we adhere to that. So, and we've continued to do that even though we're not in fiscal distress.
Thank you.
Just to add to that, Mr. Brown, it's certainly not a bad idea that we have a written policy that clearly outlines that.
I would agree with that. We can discuss that at another time.
All right. Well, once again, I'd like to say thank you for having me tonight. And Mr. Brown and Dr. Paluski has my contact information. And if there's any subsequent questions or anything you guys would like to know, feel free to reach out to me.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. And Mr. Brown, just to clarify, as we kind of put a pin in that presentation, that we will bring this back for a special session in March so that the board will have the opportunity to vote on that audit report. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct. We're presenting it tonight as an informational item. We're not asking the board to take action on that. We'll let them have time to read the report, digest it. And then at the March 4th special meeting that we're requesting prior to your workshop, we'll ask for your formal approval at that time.
Dr. Paluski, can you email us the information that Mr. Glover, that we don't have, that, you know, that sheet, that front part that you said that we didn't have that part, I guess your findings?
Yeah, what we have is a draft. So I guess we need the final audit report. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, you will. Yes, you would need the, basically, we're just going to turn the draft into the formal document. Is that correct, Mr. Glover?
Yes. Yes. I think I've emailed Mr. Brown the final process audit report, and he can forward that on to the board.
Mr. Brown,
Yeah.
I would just ask you
So,
put that in.
Dr. Paluski.
Yes, sir.
I can, I actually forwarded that report to you. You have it, but I can also link it in the board's report, the weekly report that's going out tomorrow. I could link that if you'd like.
I was just going to recommend the same thing. I think that's a great way. It's all in one spot. Everybody's got it. If you would do that, sir, would greatly appreciate it.
Thank
That way
you.
the board
Yes,
will have it
I'll do that.
tomorrow. Yep, they'll have it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Glover. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Okay, are we ready for action items?
Yes, ma'am. Madam President, action items 8.01. Action item is the disposition of minutes of prior meetings, which would be the January 21st as well as the February 4th regular meeting and special meeting.
Madam President, I'd like to move that we accept the disposition of minutes of prior meetings as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion. It's been properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Yes, ma'am. Oh, all in favor? You said aye. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you, Madam President. Action item 8.02 is employment of personnel. The superintendent recommends the following personnel on the personnel report as presented.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the employment of personnel that's on page 85.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Second.
Okay, all right. It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Madam President. Action item 8.03 are consent agenda items. 8.03 is our monthly financial reports, which you'll see for the month of February, our bank reconciliation report, and a justification, which I believe was an overbalance of 4 cents. And 8.03 is the business of office items. You'll see those are all of those items are the purchases of Chromebooks by either Title I or CARES funding at Amboy Ridge Road and Boone Park. And 8.03C is our payment of regular bills for the month of February.
I as a parliamentarian, I don't make motions, but you all are a little slow, so somebody needs to come on in.
Madam Chair, I move that the consent agenda be approved with the monthly financial reports, business office items, and payment of regular bills presented by Dr. Paluski.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded, and I guess is there any comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the board. Action item 8.03 is our resolution for bond refinancing. If you remember, and Mr. Beardsley is here with us as well as Mr. Brown, and I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Beardsley and Mr. Brown for some updated information as it comes to that action item 8.04. Welcome, Mr. Beardsley.
Good evening, board. I've got some exciting information to share with you about the refunding of your bond issue. Go ahead and share my screen and get started here. So what I have for you tonight is an update on the motion that the board approved to refinance your bond issue.
Hang on, Mr. Beardsley. I'm not sure that we can see your screen.
Okay.
If there's something that, if Ms. Colquitt or Mr. Staggers could give Mr. Beardsley, be able to share his screen.
We can see it.
Perfect. We can see it now. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, do you see the preview or the regular, JT?
The regular.
All right, great. So what I did is I took the information from the last meeting, and I'm just going to update on how the refunding worked out. So the board considered 3 options and selected to refinance the bond issue. And as a reminder, when we talk about savings in a bond issue, we're talking about the difference in the old payment and the new payment at the lower rate of interest. Those savings are unrestricted and may be spent by the board for any operational needs for construction or put into your building account. So they are unrestricted and they can be rolled over from year to year. The district currently has 3 bond issues that were approved by the voters that we call A, B, and C that we were eligible to roll together into one refunding. And we looked at refunding those and replacing the interest rates that ranged from 3.32 to 4.37. And we were hoping to get approximately 2% on the refunding bond issue. And if we were able to achieve 2% on the new bond issue and push those savings up into the first 4 years, we thought the district could net out approximately $25 million that could be set aside for projects. In addition to that, have $1 million for each of the next 10 years that could be directed to operations. And that was really our benchmark. Could we beat the 2% and could we get $25 million for projects as well as lower your debt payment? The school district received 9 bids yesterday. And the low bid was from Wells Fargo Bank at 1.913%. You also received interest from from a number of the other Wall Street firms, from Raymond James, Bank of America, Citigroup. The only bid that really wouldn't have worked was the last place one from JP Morgan. Because you received a better interest rate than what we were projecting, the savings came in higher. They ended up being spread out instead of over 4 years, being spread out over 5 years, and saved a total of $39.2 million compared to the existing debt schedule. The conclusion that the board looked at last time and decided to move forward was if you could save $25 to $26 million over the next 4 years and lower your debt payment $900,000 to $1 million a year, we would have really considered that a win. What ended up happening is the district was able to generate a little over $29 million over a 5-year project, over a 5-year period for projects, as well as lower your annual debt payment by approximately $1 million a year for each of the next 10 years, starting with the 21-22 school year. So my part's kind of fun. It's always nice when you can save money and be able to redirect that to students instead of paying interest on debt. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have. Otherwise, the final motion is there for the board's consideration.
Madam President.
Yes.
I move that we adopt the resolution authorizing the issuance and delivery of the $169,985,000 North Little Rock School District No. 1 of Pulaski County, Arkansas, refunding bonds dated March 1st, 2021, and other documents pertaining thereto as prepared by the Friday, Eldridge, and Clark Law Firm.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any comments or discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried.
All right, thank you, Madam President. I have one other item that's related to that. Since the last time the district issued debt, one of the regulatory bodies, which is the Municipal Rulemaking Board, has updated what is considered a material event that the district is responsible for reporting. We currently serve as the district dissemination agent, meaning that we'll file your audit next month when the board files it so that investors across the country can review it. And we also will file your unaudited numbers. There is no charge for that service. And we would just like to update your dissemination agent agreement to reflect the new regulatory requirements.
Madam Chair, I move that the North Little Rock School District adopt the attached continuing disclosure dissemination agreement.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried.
Well, thank you very much. We will have documents together next week for the board president and board secretary to sign, and we'll set that up with Mr. Brown at a convenient time for you to come by the office and execute those documents. But we're excited to be able to work with the district on this great project and look forward to seeing how you're going to spend those resources.
Thank you, Mr. Beardsley.
Thank you, Mr. Beardsley.
Thank you, Mr. Beardsley.
Okay, I think we have one more item on the agenda.
Yes, ma'am. So last item, action item 8.05 is our resolution for transfer of funds between banks and institutions. Mr. Brown, I'm going to turn it over to you for that resolution.
Thank you, Dr. Paluski. So at the last board workshop, we covered the resolution that allows for the movement of funds between our current bank and our new bank, First Security Bank. Let me see if I can get this shared on my screen. Okay. Can you see that resolution now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm asking for the board to approve the resolution that would allow us to transfer funds between our current primary banking service to our new primary banking service. It also allows us to direct vendors to change our direct deposits to First Security Bank as our primary banking institution. It also keeps our prior bank accounts open for allowing banking transactions to finalize, and we have issued checks that we'll have to make sure that clear. So we'll monitor that as well. Once we're to a point where we can close those prior bank accounts, we'll do that. But we'd like to start our migration to our new banking service. So we're asking for your final approval on this resolution. And what we'll do is we'll get this signed, and then we'll provide it to our major direct depositors that will direct them to use First Security Bank as our primary bank.
All right, Brian, you need this whole thing read?
No, sir. You can just say move to approve resolution, that top header, and we'll write that into the record.
All right, Madam President, I'd like to move that we approve the resolution to authorize movement of funds, change direct deposits, and keep prior accounts open.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
All right. So, and then we have on here the next two meetings, a special board meeting and workshop on March 4th, and then the next regular scheduled board meeting on March 18th.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I move we adjourn.
that's all we need. Second. Go ahead. Oh, wait, Ms. Williams, you're muted.
Almost finished.
You're still.
Oh, I will not be at the meeting on the 4th, Dr. Paluski. I will be in a conference in the great state of Mississippi, okay?
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Williams. And before we adjourn, I just want to, to our community, thanks everyone for their patience. Obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Now we're in a major historic snowstorm that we're just coming out of here in North Little Rock. Appreciate everybody's patience. As temperatures are still going to, be below freezing and freeze and refreeze. Just want to remind our parents that next Thursday, February 25th, is our virtual parent-teacher conference. That will happen from 4 to 7 p.m. That will be a regular school day. So I just want to close with a reminder to our parents about that next week, and for everyone to continue to remain being safe and warm.
Oh, and Madam President, I first, so that the administrators can know, sometimes they need a little clap on their backs. I certainly appreciate the reports given tonight. Very professional. Enjoy them immensely and keep up the good work.
I agree. Thank you. Okay. Can I get a second on the motion? Dr. Retta's motion?
You got it.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Got a third.
Aye.
Aye.
Got a third.
Anyone
Hey,
opposed?
Dr. Redis, thank you.
Yes.
Good night.
Keep up the good work
For
on your book. That good